Yeah, and I think before we do move on, something that did pop in my mind. I don't know if you saw it today, that moronic comment from Cam Newton
Oh,
talking
I
about a
watched the
handful of
video. I
quarterbacks,
watched the video.
being game managers instead of game winners, essentially. And Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott were on that list, which is who else was on that list? It was Dak, Tua,
Tua.
Brock,
Yeah.
and wasn't there one more? I don't remember.
Jared
Was it
Goff.
Jared Goff? Yeah. So if we're going to talk about who is a game manager out of all four of those, I think Jared Goff's going to be the closest to a game manager. It's not Brock. As much as I would have loved to say earlier this year, last year, sure, he's a system quarterback. He's just being successful under Shanahan. Everyone's successful under Shanahan. Goddamn, Nick Mullins is successful under Shanahan. It's fine. But you look at what he's doing, and you look at, like you said, the advanced numbers, and you can't say it. No matter what you want to say and what you think the narrative is, you can't. Not at this point. It's just a dumb comment, and it's an uneducated take to take on a podcast and just kind of put it out there. It's just not good, especially if you're Cam Newton. If you and I say something stupid, it don't even really matter. If Cam Newton goes out there and says something, it's getting clipped and it's getting posted over and over. And now you're talking about the top two MVP candidates being game
You're
managers.
also talking about a quarterback that's making the comments. See, if it's Michael Irvin or it's Jerry Rice or it's Terrell Owens, any other position talking about it, but you're talking about Cam Newton as a quarterback. We know the
Yeah.
statistics, what he had, and he's like, oh, no NFL teams called me in 2 years. It's because you got outplayed by Mac Jones, who's a trash can. And I just thought it was funny. To me, I do have to be honest with you. It's growing up in Sacramento, watching the Kings and not getting the respect that I want certain Kings players to have. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Cam Newton's comments are just based off a guy that doesn't watch the game. You can't watch
Yeah.
every single minute of the 49ers play football this year, especially if you watched every minute of Jimmy G quarterbacking this team. And there was, you and me mentioned that Christian McCaffrey throw last week that he made where he wasn't open, then he was open.
Yeah.
That was in the Super Bowl. We had that play in the Super Bowl. Jimmy G couldn't hit it. You know,
No.
he makes plays the Debo Samuel touchdown against the Seahawks was like Brock's fourth read on that play, but he sees my guy Jamal Adams standing flat footed and he ignores all the other
Mm-hmm.
reads. He knows that he's going to make that throw. And if you watch every minute of every 49er football game, there's no one in the world that says game manager. There's a couple of us that think this is too good to be true, just
Right.
purely based off of his draft, where he was taking the
Yep.
draft. If we took this dude in the first, we'd be beating our chest. But you kind of keep waiting for him to turn back into a pumpkin, and he hasn't. I think honestly, Brock Purdy is a baller, and man, if he wins the MVP this year, which if you and I were going to make a bet, I think we'd both bet on Brock winning just based off of your guys' schedule and our schedule. It seems like he'd have a better
Mm-hmm.
chance of putting up the statistics he needs to win. If he wins the MVP and
Right.
we win a Super Bowl this year, the dude's going to get paid $60 million a year. That's just wild to me. So, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
saw the Cam Newton clip. I didn't put much stock into it because Cam Newton's irrelevant. And I think he just got on a podcast and got his face in front of something that was going to, draw up some interest. And
Which is, it's another reason why he's not getting calls from anybody. This is something I talked about with a coworker today. The reason why guys like Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick, Tim Tebow, these guys are not starters. They're backups, right? And so why did they never get another opportunity just to be a backup? Oh, well, this guy's way better than this backup over here. Yeah, sure, absolutely his. But that backup over there doesn't go on podcasts, and he's not loud. He's not obnoxious because they're not used to being a starter, and they don't need to put themselves out there. They're not being interviewed by the media, but you guys are. And the thing is the minute that the starting quarterback is starting to play like a little bit wavering, it's immediately going to bring bad press to the team. You bring bad press to the team just because you were a starter. And the minute that quarterback isn't playing as well, it's going to bring bad press. And it's just not a good look.
well, and forget the media. Backup quarterbacks are to be seen, not heard. They're not supposed to
Yeah.
create any type of wave. And taking the media out of it, look at Carson Wentz. That dude could not get a job this year until a team was absolutely desperate because they didn't want him in the locker room. They would not want them
Yeah.
around the staff. They did not want him on the practice field. They didn't want him anywhere. Carson Wentz is extremely talented. We've seen it for years. The dude's mental game is obviously a little out of whack and he can't put it together, but a team didn't even want him as a backup. Who, this guy, the Jets rolled out there the last couple of weeks, went for like 2 touchdowns and 13 picks in his college career. You know, Trevor Siemian. They got Zach Wilson came out and looked like rookie Joe Burrow last week compared to these guys. And Zach Wilson has been terrible, and Carson Wentz couldn't get a job on that team. Look at Joe Flacco.
Right.
Joe Flacco, out of football. You know, the 49ers last year, this has been reported, called Phillip Rivers to see if he'd be ready in time for the Super Bowl because they were unsure.
Not when he's popping out his 20,000th kid.
Yeah, they were unsure about Josh Johnson moving forward, and Jimmy Garoppolo obviously didn't want to get ready or was injured or whatever however that played out. But yeah, Carson Wentz, Colin Kaepernick, Tim Tebow, Cam Newton. It's just when you're a backup quarterback, we don't want to hear from you. You know who might get paid in this offseason? Sam Darnold, because some team will say, you know what, he sat in Kyle Shanahan's system all year. He learned. He kept his mouth shut. He played an entire quarter against the Cowboys. You know, it happened with there was a quarterback that sat, I think it was behind maybe the Steelers. Was it Trubisky that got paid a year after sitting? Anyways, now I'm going off into a thought that I hadn't completed, but it just, when you're a backup quarterback, you can't do that kind of stuff, and that's why he's out of the league. Not to mention, we saw him in his final year with the Patriots, and when your body quits on you and you're that type of player, you know, Cam was dynamic. He was a game changer for sure. He took the game into his hands to win games. But you know what? So does Brock Purdy, because when it's 4th and 3 on the opposing 42-yard line, and we would punt that ball in the previous years, and Kyle Shanahan not only doesn't run the ball, he puts it in Brock Purdy's hands to get that first down and salt away the game for us. That's not a game manager. That's a winner.
Yeah.
And that's,
well, you heard it here first, folks. Whether it's 2013 or 2023, Joe Flacco is